Hey guys, Justin here. Welcome to another season of Be Fixed. Please note that the track temp for the guide here might not be the same that you'll experience in the race, so be on the lookout for that if your times look a little bit wonky or my times look wonky. Alright, now let's go right to the lap.
.258.
Alright, let's take a look at that. So I think this might be a first lap hot lap, but I think second lap would work as well. Maybe the tire heat would add a little bit more, but I was able to get some good laps on first lap, and second lap was only felt equal to me. So also note the track temp that I put in the description of this video or at the beginning, because if you are really slow or really fast compared to this, it might be because of a difference in track temp, because I'm doing this a bit blind going into week one. All right, so the setup for this lap, I'm just going to run along the high side, try to stay off the wall. It's really easy to hit that wall. Basically, I just brake really early and kind of just roll into the corner because it doesn't really matter how fast you are at the beginning of the corner. And then I pick up the throttle to about partial, about halfway through, just trying to wrap and turn down a little bit, try to make a straight exit for myself coming to the line. So you see I come down about a lane, lane and a half, 2 lanes, and then I try to get my wheel as straight as early as possible, and that's what allows me to get a big run to the line. Because there's so many bumps on this track that trying to build up a run just by running along the high side, you're going to have your wheel turned for longer than you would if you make that cut down. So you aren't getting as much momentum and speed off the corner than if you cut down, straighten your wheel out early, and just drive straight off the corner. All right, so turn one, we're going to be braking pretty early compared to intuitively, but these cars need it. So with this brake bias that we're using, I'm braking about right here, and then what I'm trying to do is aim for my lefts to be on the bottom of this dark groove. A lot of the times this dark groove is a really good place to start, and this is one of them. Sometimes it's not that great though, but what we are doing in this corner is basically just taking a line that avoids as many bumps as possible. So very low really gets a little hairy, like down here. In fact, you'll see it at the end of this corner. So I'm just trying to keep my left side kind of along, but either between this seam right here and the bottom of this groove, which is actually a pretty forgiving groove to be in. So we start off by dragging our brake into the corner. We start off by stabbing the brake 40-ish%. We call this the slowdown brake. If you watched on my main channel, my guide to short tracks in iRacing, you'll see that there's multiple stages of braking we go through. The first stage is straight line, hard braking, brake to slow down. Then as we turn, we lower the brake into a drag, and then we pick up the throttle partially, let that go towards the bottom on its own, and then raise the throttle slowly until we can get our wheel straight and then full throttle. That is pretty much exactly in line with my short track video that I posted a couple weeks ago, so that kind of just proves the concept even more. Brake to slow down, brake drag. I could have held the brake drag a little longer, admittedly, and then partial throttle. Hold the partial throttle, slowly raise it until your wheel is completely straight, then we full throttle. And then we get a launch off the corner because we full throttle without any wheel spin. All right, now going into 3 and 4, we brake early again. It just feels intuitively too early, but you're gonna have to brake early with this car. So brake to slow down, brake drag, switch to partial throttle after the car wants to start turning down the hill. But now here's the thing, the bottom of 4 has the craziest bumps ever. You cannot go through them without having them send you up to the wall. So there's 2 things you can do. You can over rotate into those bumps so that you can kind of straighten out from the bumps and make the corner, or you can miss the bumps and just barely clip them and not go all the way to the bottom. I found for hot lap, I like to try to brave it down there, use some extra steering wheel, use to burn some more right front tire off, but that is not what I recommend in the race. But for qualifying, I think you brave it out down on those bumps. So at the end of the day, it's the same process as 1 and 2. Brake to slow down, brake to rotate, partial throttle, turn down the hill, through the bumps, and straighten out as early as possible, and full throttle when your car is completely straight. You see that I got a little bit loose off the corner because I broke a little rule of mine. I went full throttle before my wheel was completely straight or my car was pointed completely straight, and that caused me to get loose off the corner. But you can push for those little tiny advantages when you're going for a hot lap, but that's just something that'll burn tire and be a bad habit during a race. All right, now let's, speaking of the race, go talk about some race run. All right, let's take a look at a bit of a long run here. So this is another short track with the B fixed car, which is going to be very interesting. This is just an extremely bumpy track, so a lot of your line is going to have to do with mitigating the bumps as much as possible. So in turns 1 and 2 in particular, we talked about it a bit before in the qualifying, but if you want to cut down, just know that there are a bunch of bumps down there, so you almost have to only like half cut it, or else you're going to be turning the wheel a ton in order to make it down there. One big thing about long run is you do not want to overdrive entry. It's one thing to have somebody on your butt and kind of be scared that you're going to get run over, but especially if you have a little bit of room, it's going to be a lot better if you just enter easier, get on the throttle earlier, and just use that momentum on exit. You can run very consistent, fast laps at the beginning of a run without even having to really push the issue. So you see here, we get off a little earlier than you think I might need to, go to that second groove, just ride the throttle partial, and then once we get off the corner, we can go full throttle. Very easy on both the tires, and really how much we're pushing it all. Notice how I'm not really going full throttle until I'm already pretty much off the corner. Waiting on it, waiting on it. Once the wheel's straight, I go full throttle.
19.362.
I like this entry into the second lane. Feels like I can use that cut down and just barely get on those bumps without having it really disrupt my line. I'll show you what happens when you go all the way down to the bottom from the start. You're all the way at the bottom, right? And it just seems like you're waiting on it a lot longer, and I'm actually using more wheel at the same time. Especially in 3 and 4, it kind of works better. So the launch isn't quite as bad, but if you do an early entry into that second groove and then just wait on the car to turn down the hill, it's going to make your life a lot easier. Oh, a little loose there. That's the one thing about the brake bias, is that if you go too low on the brake bias and overdrive entry, you'll really spin your rears and maybe even spin out. Oops. So it's very important for that early entry, especially when you're not under pressure. And when you are under pressure, really try to minimize your wheel input under braking.
19.818.
This is going to be a very rough race on the tires. So any moment that you can kind of conserve by letting out early on the entry, kind of getting onto partial throttle and just holding that partial throttle for longer, and then not going full throttle until you're all the way on the straightaway, that'll help you in the long run. Because this should pretty much just be the line that you're going to run the entire race. Sometimes people make a really weird high line work here that might come into play. I'm not sure though. We'll try that out in a little bit. We'll try that out here. So people can actually have found that they can make the top line work here. Maybe on like a lot older tires where you're not able to roll the bottom, but yeah, I just don't like it quite as much, especially on the new tires. It was a thing in ARCA. I don't know how much ARCA will translate over to be fixed here. So I just would mostly recommend just this entry, about half a lane to 1 lane up, wait on the brake until it turns down the hill, partial throttle until you're off the corner, then full throttle when you're off the corner. Do one more lap here.
613.
Partial throttle. Full throttle when you're off the corner. Early brake. Partial throttle as you turn down the hill. Unload the wheel when the wheel's straight, full throttle. Alright,
19.6.
take a look at the tires and see what the trends of the tire wear are. So a little bit more on the right rear, which is what we like to see. The nature of this race probably will lead to right front wear by the end of it, as long as you aren't just completely sliding off of every corner. Though that turn down, those bumps are really going to take its toll on your right front. So at the short run, you want to be a little more careful on the right front, and then as the run goes on, it'll kind of even out, and you just got to run that sort of neutral line that I was showing earlier. All right, thank you all for watching. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all on the track.